Appropriation. Well, so the female Thor, Jane Foster, has actually been around for a couple of years now, at least in the comics. I believe there's some buzz at the movies coming out with Lady Thor. I get having an immediate response of outrage because there's this slew of characters being created on the backs of classic characters. Honestly, if you're gonna make like the female Iron Man, for example, I think Riri Williams, I believe is her name. First off, the name Riri is stupid because it's slang for retard, a derogatory term used for people with special needs. So right off the bat, just dumb character creation. Plus, she's just kind of a Mary Sue that plays on the back of Tony Stark. So rather than creating a substantial black female character that works on her own, or using one of the ones that has existed already in the Marvel Universe, they went, let's just turn this big name into a black woman. Like that character specifically, I do not understand. I think it's patronizing and just blatant tokenization, to be honest. However, with the Ladies Thor storyline, there's a parallel storyline called Unworthy Thor, where Thor is found unworthy by Mjolnir, his hammer, and the hammer finds Jane Foster, and she becomes Thor in a similar way that the Doctor, whose name I cannot remember, but he finds like a stick in some cave, like in the original Thor comic, and picks up the stick, and it turns out that the stick is Mjolnir, and he gains the power of Thor. So it's kind of built off of that premise. But yeah, like I said, there's a whole Thor the Unworthy story arc that's going on, which hopefully Marvel will do if they do this. But I mean, then again, they also did it in the first movie, so I guess we'll see how that plays out. Hopefully it's not just pandering, but Batwoman with a hammer. Because of the Thor the Unworthy story arc, and Jane Foster's actually battling cancer, and Mjolnir's kind of like holding it back, but simultaneously every time she picks up the hammer, whenever she goes back to her human form, it's a little bit worse. There's kind of a whole thing going on there, and then she becomes like a representative for Earth, which I guess we consider that a little bit of pandering, but it's still kind of an interesting storyline. I'll link the Comicstorian Jane Foster Thor video. Yeah, it's not as bad as one might think. It's really just, I mean, at face value, it seems pretty shitty, but in reality, it's kind of an interesting storyline, to be honest. You'll just have to watch Comicstorian's video or buy the comic books yourself if you're really curious. Comicstorian's video is free, so if you don't want to fork over dough to Herr Disney, it's understandable. And the Marvel Thor in general is really a bad representation of what the lore says Thor is anyway. No matter what, you're gonna have to, when you're talking to people about the lore, you're gonna have to dispel like a ton of myths. I have heard, I don't know for sure, but I have heard that the comics are actually more based off of Richard Wagner's plays. I'm actually gonna do like a full video talking about cultural appropriation in general, well, pertaining to the Norse. The word appropriation means to steal. So honestly, in my opinion at least, in order to appropriate our lore, you would have to abuse it in some way. And I think that's really the big thing. How is the lore being treated? And I get that that's probably where a lot of people are pissed off at Lady Thor. They don't feel like this masculine character is being treated properly. And I'm going to go over this when I do my video on being pagan in the military, but there's a lot of stereotypes you have to dispel, whether it's Christian or them lumping us in with every D&D LARPer. They thought my religion was Harry Potter in the Marine Corps, which, I mean, irritated me, but I mean, you gotta kind of roll with it, you know? Otherwise, you're the asshole. That's the whole thing. So tell me what you think in the comments below. Do you like Lady Thor or not? Do you think it's pandering? Do you think it's just tokenization? Do you think the storyline was crappy? Now for some gratuitous plugging. I have a Teespring. I just started a Redbubble as well. The Redbubble is just like, you have to upload a picture. You don't really get to set it up quite as much as Teespring. I'll put links to those in the description as well. Skull.